Hey guys, it's Maddox from Bay Bridge Sports, and we're here with 49er Friday. We're going to be giving you guys a little draft preview, the third pick, and then some picks down the road. I'm here with Matt Kaimer. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, how's it going, everybody? I host the Nuggets of Gold podcast. Talk a lot about 49ers, do some NFL stuff, some Padres stuff, but always down to talk 49ers football. And we got an interesting draft coming up, so this is going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah, most definitely. I just kind of wanted to see what Matt is. I want to give here two takes. Number one, who you personally want at three, and then who you think the Niners will end up going with at three.
So I've always been, I'll start right here. I'm not a Zach Wilson guy. And Maddox, I know you're not a Zach Wilson guy either. Doesn't mean I don't think he's an NFL caliber quarterback or anything. But for me, like taking a guy like him early or a Mac Jones early is just a little too rich for me. When I'm kind of going through my quarterback evaluations currently, and I don't think these are going to change, but quarterback one, Trevor Lawrence, quarterback two, Trey Lance, three, Justin Fields, four is going to be Zach Wilson, and then five would be Mac Jones. So that's just kind of where I stand. Now, I'll say this. My one, two, and three are a lot closer than my four and five. And there's a gap from four to five as well. I don't think Zach Wilson is some slouch, but it almost seems like he's a lock to go at two, and Trevor Lawrence is a lock to go at one. So it's really, when we kind of look at it, there's three guys that are available, and we have heard some Mac Jones hype lately. I don't know how much I believe that. I think there's a lot of smoke there. Adam Schefter kind of said that if he had to take a guess at it, it would be Mac Jones. Then today he comes out and says like, hey, no one knows what the pick is. So all of this conversation of, oh, it's Mac Jones at three, it's Mac Jones at three. I don't know where that kind of came from. It kind of just seems like a lot of people in the media just assume that based on Kyle's past quarterback evaluations. Now, if you look back at this past season and you hear what Kyle has to say about a lot of guys, namely Josh Allen is one that I really think is a guy that you kind of have to like look at what he's kind of looking in a quarterback. He talks about these guys that can extend plays at a very high level, and he even admits that he's kind of changed the way that he views quarterback. So I fully expect it to be either Justin Fields or Trey Lance. If I had to put a number on either of those two guys of who it could be, I'm going to say it's Justin Fields about 65% to 35% versus Trey Lance. If you toss in Mac Jones, those numbers are going to change, but I don't expect Mac Jones to really be the pick at all. And I'm interested to what you kind of think about those rumors, but I do expect Justin Fields to be the pick just because, and we talked about this before off air, Maddox, but he's the safer option. He's the guy that we've seen play very good defenses, have success in the college football playoff against Clemson, where I would be a little bit surprised even if the pick was Trey Lance. And I said he's my quarterback too. I don't think you can go wrong with either one of those guys. Now, for the 49ers timeline, I do think it makes a little bit more sense to go with a guy like Justin Fields. Like I said, he's going to start right away. And their roster is stacked. And if you look back in history, there hasn't been a rookie quarterback to win the Super Bowl. But if you're Kyle Shanahan and you start building up a superb offense with this defense that we saw in 2019, and it's not the same defense from 2019, but there are a lot of similar pieces, there's a chance that they can make a deep playoff run, especially when you look into the NFC and you see kind of these teams of, okay, how early can the 49ers compete again? They can compete next year. And if you're just looking at from a year-to-year basis, the guy that gives them the best chance to do that is Justin Fields. So I do like Trey Lance a little bit more, but I fully expect them to take Justin Fields, and I completely stand behind that pick.
Yeah, I mainly agree with you on a lot of points there. The only thing that I want to go back to your quarterback rankings. I always Lawrence at one, obviously, and then a lot closer than I think a lot of people really think. I have Fields at number two, and I think he's a lot closer to Lawrence than anyone else. Where I kind of get mixed up with you here is I have Lance at three. I think Lance can be better than Fields one day. He's got a bigger body. He looks a little bit more athletic on the field. May not be as fast, but I think long term, the speed's not really going to be into play for Fields. I think Fields is going to make his money with his arm and extending plays, not necessarily gaining yards downfield with his legs. So there's that. But he just needs a little more seasoning. I don't think Lance is ready right now. I think Fields is the more ready right now. And I would take Fields if I'm the Niners. I think that's their best option at quarterback, considering Jimmy G. You just never know what you're going to get. And who knows? I mean, Jimmy G might come out and play ridiculous, but I just really don't think that's going to happen. And I think Fields is going to be their best option going forward. Now, I mean, the Mac Jones talk is pretty ludicrous, I think. I don't think he deserves the third pick. I mean, he had a great season, don't get me wrong. He's not a bum, but like at the end of the day, it's like I feel like he got carried. Like you watch Clemson and you get the feeling that Lawrence makes everyone around him better. Where versus when you watched Alabama, you got the feeling that everyone around Jones made Jones better. I feel like Jones was getting bailed out. Defenses are committing hard to the run with Najee, and we'll talk about Najee a little bit more later, just because interesting scenarios are at play. And I think the Niners have a difficult decision to make at 3, but like these are the good difficult decisions you get to make in the NFL. You like the Niners are in a great spot right now, and honestly, anywhere they go, I don't see them going wrong. You draft Fields, I mean, you can win now, you can win later. You draft Lance, maybe he comes in week 8, week 9, week 10 when Jimmy G's probably going to get hurt. You go crazy and you take Sewell and you move around your line and you have an incredibly nasty O-line. Or you could go and take Pitts and you have the best tight end combo. I mean, they have so many options, but I really think the best long-term option has to be Fields.
Yeah, and just talking about Penny Sewell and Kyle Pitts and those guys, I highly doubt that you're going to see that, and mostly because of the capital that it took to go and acquire this pick, which it's going to be a quarterback. Like I think that's become pretty clear. Now it is interesting, like you talk about, like okay, you bring Penny Sewell into the offense, you bring a Kyle Pitts, and you let Shanahan kind of mold that offense. The problem is, and you kind of mentioned it, we don't know how long Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be on the field for, and that's been the issue. I mean, that was the problem with the 2020 season. Like, yes, Nick Bosa goes down. Yes, they traded DeForest Buckner, and like a lot of stuff got affected by the defense. But offensively, if Jimmy plays all those games, they're clearly a playoff team. They're probably in the mix. They're still hanging with the Buccaneers. Like, let's not act like they weren't like a solid squad even without Nick Bosa. But it's the quarterback. You got to have a quarterback on the field. So I don't expect Kyle Pitts to that. Also, just another thing, like, you have Trent Williams there for the future. They just signed Alex Mack. They've already invested a lot into the offensive line, so I wouldn't expect them to do that. You also bring up Kyle Pitts, who apparently, so I don't know where I'm at in NFL minds, but the Cowboys aren't on board with my kind of philosophy of not taking a guy like that this early and like building up some stacked offense, because I think the 49ers weapons are very, very good and very underrated. And if you added Kyle Pitts, not like it's going to hurt that situation. I think that he will. I think he's a guy that you should project to be a Hall of Fame caliber player. But we've seen that Kyle Shanahan can go and get guys later on in the draft. We've seen him go get George Kittle in the 5th round. We've seen him draft. Well, he went Dante Pettis, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk in the 1st round, early 2nd round range. And look at how that's worked out. Each one of those guys has gotten better, in my opinion. His evaluations of how receivers has just improved in San Francisco. And of course, he's known to be a fantastic wide receiver evaluator. So I don't think that you want to spend like that early capital on a weapon because you have Kyle Shanahan. Like, it's a little bit different if you don't have those guys. So I don't think that's going to be the case. But for Justin Fields, like, I'm all for it, man. Like, I will be very, very happy if it's Justin Fields. And I brought up Trey Lance. I think when you kind of get into that discussion, you really got to think about, like, okay, well, what are the 49ers trying to build? Are they trying to build a win now mode team? Because if you talk about, like, okay, like, who are the guys that you want to play for, like, win now? It's Mac Jones and it's Justin Fields. Like, those are the two options. If you're looking in the long term, like, okay, what are they going to do? Then the pick's Trey Lance. So I think it just depends on what their philosophy with the quarterback position is. Because if they are really expecting Jimmy G to be their starter next year, then Trey Lance will be the pick. Like, I think that's what it's going to look like. But I don't think that's what they want. I don't think that they're interested in keeping Jimmy G around. I think that we're going to see him potentially traded in the draft. And if not traded in the draft, maybe he starts, the first few games and then they move him, even if they took Fields. But I find it hard to believe that they're going to take Trey Lance and just kind of like, all right, we're going to build it. Like, we're going to look at this guy and see how good he can become, which I think he can be great. But I think that you got to go with Justin Fields. I really do. I can't see them not doing that.
Yeah, 100%. How many years left are on Jimmy G's contract?
He'll have 1 year after this. So and the thing is, like, his dead cap next year is like $1 million or $2
Oh
million.
wow.
It's almost nothing. Like people go, oh, he has a large salary, but there's
Or you
no
can cut
guaranteed
him.
money, so they can easily cut him.
Well, I mean, honestly, like if I liked what you were saying with the Lancet scenario. I mean, you go Lance at 3, you let him sit, and honestly, like Jimmy G, realistically, will probably at least miss one game. I mean, 17-game schedule. That they could realistically be in a position where they can rest him week 17 or week 18 or whatever they're going to call it, and let him play then, or he gets hurt earlier down the road. You can get him playing time then, and then next season you cut Jimmy G or you move him, and you got your starter there. I mean, they have a ton of options. It's a great place to be in. Kind of wanted to see what you were looking for position wise later in the draft, and some guys you really are interested in Shanahan taking to the Niners.
So I think there's a few spots that they have some needs, not like desperate needs where they need a starter in this spot. Cornerback is probably the biggest one, and I'm not really big on drafting cornerbacks early, just because I like build. I mean, I know you're a Steelers fan, so we've seen both of our teams kind of have the same philosophy as, hey, we're going to build a very strong defensive line. We're going to build upon a TJ Watt or a Nick Bosa and have this elite star pass rusher. Build our guys around him. You guys kind of got a Cam Hayward. We have Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, those type of players. But I've never really been big on drafting corner early, but everyone, for the most part, under the 49er in the secondary is on a short-term deal, either 1 or 2 years. So we're going to see the secondary get completely like revolved around. So I think that you're going to have to see them draft corner or safety, some type of secondary piece on day 2, and they have the 43rd overall pick, and then they have a comp pick in the 3rd round. So you can easily see, I think that you should definitely expect them to take a secondary guy in that range. Guy I like a lot, Eric Stokes. Another guy is Elijah Molden. There's Javon Holland. There's a lot of pieces there. You brought up to me before Asante Samuel, which would be interesting. And you kind of, when you think about the 49ers, you think of a very zone-heavy scheme. I think we're going to see that change a little bit, just because they were kind of getting burned a little bit by it last year. And we also saw the Super Bowl. That's kind of how they got burned in the end. And that's why I think we're going to see them part ways with Rich. I mean, they have parted ways with Richard Sherman, but they're kind of changing up how they work their secondary. So I think that if you look at a guy and you're like, well, this guy's more of a man corner than a zone corner, I think that doesn't count him out of the 49ers plan. So I think that they could go a lot of different ways. Another potential thing that we were kind of talking about is, why not trade up? They have 3 picks in the 5th round, and yes, they just traded up. They lost they lost 2 firsts and a 3rd this year. They have another comp 3rd next year. You kind of start looking at it and you go, hey, like they still have a lot of draft picks, and they're a veteran roster with not that many holes. So why not try to get a high caliber player that they just absolutely love early? And one guy I brought up, Najee Harris. I mean, if you bring in Justin Fields and Najee Harris in the 1st round of the draft, I don't know how that doesn't potentially project as maybe the greatest rushing offense ever year 1. Like, do you think I'm off on that, or do you think there's a chance that they could be that good?
I mean, yeah, no, I'm 100% sold on Najee, and I'm 100% sold on Fields. And behind that O-line, like you were talking about with Juszczyk and I mean, the O-line they have, I mean, that's going to be ridiculous. I mean, and Kittle, you throw Kittle in there too. I mean, yeah, that would be a very scary system.
Really, what I start thinking about is, okay, like their rushing attack is kind of built on, hey, we're going to seal the edges, and the 2 guys that do that are George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk, and then your 2 tackles are Mike McGlinchey and Trent Williams. That might be the best personnel to run that zone scheme. And then you go, hey, on top of that, we're going to have Raheem Mostert, who might be the fastest running back in the league. We're going to have Jeff Wilson, who I think he's a really good depth running back to have. I don't think he should be like your 1A guy. But then you add Najee Harris, who should be a star in the league. I think that he will be a star in the league. And you go, okay, what about receiver? Oh, Deebo Samuel, who we use on end arounds all the time. Brandon Ayuk, who scored 2 touchdowns running the ball and hurdled. I forget who it was. Some guy, I forget who it was, but some guy on the Eagles, of course. I think everyone's seen that play a million times. They can run the ball in so many different ways. And then you also bring up Justin Fields, who is a great runner. But not only that, his ability to accurately throw the ball downfield is spectacular. So you're going to spread out the offense and also add this power running back and just improve the rushing game so much. I don't know how any defense can match up with that personnel. That is Andy Reid's, Mahomes Chiefs like in a totally different way, but in how much it can affect the game. Like that
100%.
personnel is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean that's what I thought when Baltimore went with what's the running back they just drafted? J.K. Dobbins. Yeah, when they went J.K., I was like, oh damn, they're gonna be good. And then they didn't really play him. And then once they started playing him and he started going off, that looks scary. I really think that's something the Niners can project to. And I mean, you're talking about with Staley out almost the entire time that J.K. was getting a bulk of the carries. I mean, that running game kind of projects to what I see the Niners as, except for I think Niners can take that to the next level under Shanahan with his ability with play action. I mean, you have a really solid run game, great play action. I mean, that could easily be a top 5 offense, and they're both rookie years.
It's just one of those things. And also, if you're like a guy that's like, hey, like, you should never draft running back in the first round, I disagree with that. I don't think you should be paying running backs unless it's a Christian McCaffrey. Like even Alvin Kamara, like signing him is kind of scary just because he's had some injury issues. And hey, even Christian McCaffrey, they signed him last offseason and he missed almost the whole year. Signing running backs and drafting running backs in the first round is entirely different, in my opinion. If you draft a running back in the first round, like let's talk about Zeke, for example, because I think a lot of people look back on that Zeke draft and they go, hey, like, I don't know if that was a good pick. Zeke and the Cowboys were spectacular. He was the reason why their offense was so good, and the offensive line, of course, and having Dak Prescott there. But their run game was so good and so dominant, and it led to so many wins. They led to making the playoffs and having some success. They didn't quite get it done, but still, like there's other factors there.
I mean, they overcame one of the worst defenses in the NFL because of how good Zeke was at running the ball. I mean, people really forget. I mean, he had a terrible year last year, but I mean, he was really, really good. And he was a guy that I was like, you don't need to extend him. I'm really happy as a Steelers fan that we didn't extend Le'Veon just for the same kind of reasons. You just drafting in the first round is way different than paying him.
Well, also drafting Zeke at what was it, 4?
5, I think.
5? Yeah, drafting him at 5 and drafting Najee in the early 20s or late 20s is totally different. I've seen him mocked in the second round a couple of times. Well, I mean, if Najee was there at 43, I think that would be the best pick of the draft.
So if at 43 it's Etienne or Najee, would you take Najee?
Oh yeah, I take Najee. Yeah. Well, I would take Najee just because I mean, and I like Etienne too. Like I think he's a good player, but for what the Niners do, a guy like Najee Harris, like I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how you stop that offense. I really have no idea.
People call him a power back. He's freaking fast as hell too, and he's pretty shifty.
And he's good really in the pass game.
Yep, he's athletic. You watch an Alabama football game, and you look, and honestly, like Waddle was good, Smith was good. I mean, those guys are awesome. They're going to be great NFL players. But I looked at Najee, and I'm like, that is the best player on the field right now. And that was like watching the national championship game. That was like my takeaway. It was like, damn, Najee is the best player on the field.
I think that he's been like that for quite some time.
Oh, for the last 2 years in college football. I mean, his stats are freaking insane. Like, I just don't know how he's not in like maybe 10 years ago, he would have been a top 5 pick in the NFL.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like, if everyone's developing this mindset of, oh, you can't invest in running back, don't ever invest in running back. And I get like looking at Kyle and going, hey, Kyle hits on all these late round guys. Would he be the best? I mean, Najee would be the best running back that he's had. Like, right? Yeah. I mean, who's the best guy right now? Like
Freeman,
Devontae Freeman, Alfred Morris. Like, it's not like there's
Freeman was people forget Freeman was really, really good this first couple of years.
No, yeah, but I mean, I don't know if you know this, but also just kind of going back to the draft, I think this is something interesting. The 49ers are going to be the first team ever to draft a quarterback in the top 3 after making the Super Bowl the year before. You're going to have a young quarterback in a spot where he's going to be in the best position to succeed. I know I just kind of went back real fast. But if you do that, and then on top of that, you draft him a stud running back next to him, and okay, who's the guy that's going to spell Najee? Oh, it's Raheem Mostert. Like, the offense is just terrifying. And I just, so much of NFL today is like trying to get mismatches. and Kyle does a fantastic job at doing that. If you just keep stacking weapons, it doesn't matter. Like, let's not put a position next to their name, but let's just say you have Najee Harris, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Kyle Juszczyk on the field. They can line up at any spot.
Yeah.
Kyle Juszczyk goes out and lines up out wide. You could put Deebo Samuel in the backfield. You could put him and Najee in the backfield. Like, you can use Deebo as a lead blocker. You can have him motion across and have him be like, he does that a lot. I just don't like, the defense is going to be looking at this. You can go out there, line up in the same personnel, like the same formation every single time, and do 15 things out of it, and the defense is going to be completely out of sorts. Their linebackers, oh shit, our linebackers stuck on Brandon Ayuk. He's toasting him. You got Justin Fields just having wide open guys down. Like there's just so many options that they can do this draft. And I like building up the defense and doing that stuff. And I think that you do need to take a corner. But if there's studs on the board, and also this doesn't just apply for Najee Harris, but if, let's see, Rashad Bateman, I don't think he's going to be there anymore, but early on in the offseason, it kind of seemed like he was going to be around to round 2. Then he runs a sub 4.4. I don't know how accurate that is just because it's his pro day. But there are so many wide receivers that are going to be around in that early round 2 range as well, where just start getting weapons. Draft Justin Fields, get these weapons, and just you have a chance to actually win the Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback. And I think that, like, maybe I'm a little bit biased because I'm a 49ers fan, but the NFC isn't that good. The best team is the Buccaneers. That's what I believe. I think the second best team is either the Rams or the Packers. The 49ers,
the Packers, yeah, Packers and then Rams, yeah.
The 49ers have beat the Rams a lot, and I know it's totally different because they have Matthew Stafford now, and I'm very high on Matthew Stafford as well. But they lost a lot of pieces on defense. They lost the John Johnsons, So I think
gritty guys that like win games. That's what they lost.
And we'll see how they replace them. I think it helps when you have Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald to kind of help those complementary pieces or those role players, because they just play their role. They don't have to do a lot of stuff outside of what they're asked to. But there's no reason that the 49ers can't compete with all of those teams, and not just compete,
beat them.
The problem with the Packers is that when the Packers played the Niners, when they have played the healthy 49ers team, and if you even go back a long time ago, I want to say it was when Nick Mullins had his first start. I think maybe it wasn't his first start, and it might have been CJ Beathard, but there was a primetime game in Shanahan's first year there maybe it was the year that Jimmy got hurt. It was either the first or the second year. Like, the 49ers were not a good roster. It was one of the years where they had a very early draft pick afterwards.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
They almost beat them, and it took a Mason Crosby game-winning field goal to beat the Niners. And that's when the Packers, they had Aaron Rodgers. They had a stacked crew. They haven't been able to beat the Niners. And then you look at the Bucs. Bucs are stacked, right? I think the Bucs have a kind of a similar team to what the Niners did in 2019, but it helps when you have Tom Brady instead of Jimmy Garoppolo. No offense to Jimmy, but they feed. They absolutely eat on these statue quarterbacks. And you're going to see Brady in the dirt so many plays. And you're going to see Nick Bosa screaming off the edge. And I know they have a good O-line, but let's not act like when you have a good O-line, like they can stop these star pass rushers, because we see that every year. Oh, it's the playoffs, and guess who's eaten? It's always the star guys. It's always the TJ Watts. It's been the Watts for a long time, but it's also the Bosas. Like, we see all of these star guys elevate their game in the playoffs. There's a reason why you see so many upsets with these teams that just have nasty defensive lines. So, and that's what they've done on the defensive
Rams
side.
This last offseason, or this last playoff. No one really had them beating the Seahawks.
And they had the right personnel to do that. They have Leonard Floyd. They have and they weren't using him much, but Samson Ebukam, who the 49ers just got, who actually forced a fumble on special teams in that playoff game. Like, you just have, and he's out there as like a guard on the punt team, and he's forcing fumbles. So you're getting a lot of production from your defensive line in that one.
Yeah,
but it's exciting, man. It's really exciting. There's a lot of options,
like
but you can't mess up number 3.
These are the good hard decisions. I mean, you're not having to choose between. You're not like Shanahan's not making a decision that's going to make or break his job, right? Like, realistically, I mean, wherever he goes, he's going to succeed here. I just wanted to ask one last question, just because I've seen it floating around on Twitter, just kind of like being brought up. Do you think there is any chance that the Niners could possibly trade up to 2 to take Wilson?
No. because they already made their trade, and it's been reported, and like I said, I don't know what to believe out of these reports because you hear ridiculous stuff, and the whole thing about this recent Niners front office is that there haven't been leaks. So I'm not going to look at the speculation because there was like reports that they never talked to the Jets, right? They never sent them an offer. I think that they are where I actually think that they're where they are now is that they've decided that they either want Justin Fields or Trey Lance. They trade up to 3, knowing that Zach Wilson is going 2, and they are totally fine with that. And that's not the guy that they're targeting. Like they are targeting one of those 2 guys. Maybe it's Mac Jones. I would not be happy about that. My how I feel about the offense would change drastically if Mac Jones was taken. Not to say that he's not going to perform, but these other guys, like they just open up so many possibilities for the offense and mostly the run game, to be honest. But I don't think that that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. I just saw it out there, and it's definitely an interesting idea. I mean, I think Fields is their man, but who knows? They could easily go Lance, and they'll be fine in the long run. I think that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for coming on. Make sure everyone watching this, go check out Matt and Nuggets of Gold podcast. It's an awesome podcast. They're always talking Niners, and really good group of guys there talking. Thank you so much for coming on, Matt.
Yeah, of course. I really appreciate it. It's going to be fun to keep doing these 49er Fridays. Also, the one after the draft is going to be really exciting because we're going to be talking about all these potential things. And we talked about the 49ers trading up. I think there's a very realistic chance that happens. So hopefully, what is that, 2 weeks from now? The Friday of the draft, I want to say it's 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
I think the draft's 23rd.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, so I mean that's going to be a really exciting game or day. Next episode, like we can definitely talk more about the draft because this is an exciting time to be a 49ers fan, and it's kind of toxic on Twitter, but I think people need to look back and like stop getting so angry about these guys. Like let Shanahan do his thing. I don't